Hey everyone, welcome to the podcast Too Much Disinformation, the pod that uncovers the good, the bad, and the fake of the online world. I'm your host, Rafi Mendelsohn, and on today's pod, we are going to be discussing our public digital footprint. But we're going to be approaching it from two different perspectives, both from the individual, us, the information that we're sharing online, and being aware of how we're interacting in the digital space and our footprint that leaves, but also, really interestingly, talking about it from the perspective of intelligence analysts and how that they can gather our digital footprint and make sense of it and provide intelligence from it. And so today, talking us through that topic is Andrew Kirsch. And Andrew is a consultant on issues of physical, cyber, and national security. But earlier in his career, he spent many years at the Canadian Security Intelligence Services as an intelligence officer. He was also a security officer enhancing the physical, information, and network security across the Ontario Public Service. And he sits on the Ontario Expert Panel on Cybersecurity, which looks at cybersecurity practices in the broader public sector. Last year, he published in his memoirs, I Was Never Here, which really pulls back the curtain and gives us a glimpse into the Canadian spy world. So let's delve straight into that topic and start the show. Hey, Andrew, how's it going?
It's great. Great to be here.
Thanks for joining us. And I'm going to kick off firstly, the question that we ask every single guest that comes on is to tell us what your first ever social media platform was.
Well, I'm going to date myself here, I guess. I graduated university in 2002, and I think Facebook, when it came out shortly thereafter, it was probably my first social media account, like many. And what's funny is that then I disappeared. I was an intelligence officer with the Canadian Intelligence Service. So I kind of disappeared off the grid for about 10 years. And when I was getting ready to leave, my wife joked to me, she said, I've never met anybody who was so excited about getting a LinkedIn account. I'd lost touch with everybody that I knew, and I'd really avoided being public for a very, very long time. So I was, maybe to my detriment, but excited about getting back, reconnecting with folks. So I'd say Facebook was the first. And then when I came back out of the spy world, it was getting a LinkedIn account and building my professional network became the big one afterwards.
Nice. And for anyone that follows Andrew, he's very active on LinkedIn, is always putting out really interesting stuff that I've really been enjoying. But I think that's a really good segue into the conversation that we're going to be having today, because you were on a social media platform, you paused your activities on a social media platform, and then you resumed it as well, which I think goes into the heart of the topic that we're going to be talking about today, which is our digital footprint. And just before we hit record, we were talking about how, in years gone by, that wasn't even something that we were considering, but actually how our footprint has got larger.
Oh yeah, I mean it's amazing to think about those early days. This is my first Facebook account. I think we were talking about MySpace and even ICQ and some of the early iterations of social media and how we were connecting. I was saying that when I was an intelligence officer, one of my roles was to knock on doors and try to talk to people about threats to the security of Canada. And before I knocked on the door, these were often people who I felt just through their position or connections might have information of interest. They're not bad people. They're people I thought and hoped would help me. But before you go and knock on a door and talk to somebody, you do a little bit of research. And in those early days, if I did a Google search, I was lucky if there's an article in the paper about them to say, okay, maybe they were a part of a Rotary Club or somewhere that would show they were civically engaged. But now, at the end of my career, when you would go and do a search, you would find everybody they're connected with, that they work with on LinkedIn. You could see if they're liking each other's Facebook pictures of the person you might be interested in. And then that stream of consciousness everybody has on Twitter, you could see what they feel and maybe build a profile of whether that person will be likely to help you or is very connected to the person you're interested in and what kind of access they have. So just in that sense, it gives me appreciation for the information that I put out in the world and kind of how that's used to build profiles of people. I joke in Canada here and working for a Canadian intelligence, like, and we're the good guys, right? And I was looking for people to try to get some help. So I said, the bad guys are unfortunately doing this too.
So I definitely want to come back to and explore the good guys and the bad guys, by the way. But I want to let's maybe start kind of as an individual. If you're someone who's active on social media, like all of us are, how should we think about a digital footprint, and how should we how are we experiencing that on a day to day? Are we aware of that? Are there things that we're not aware?
Well, I think that's the first big point, is to be aware. As somebody who said I avoided it, and you say, oh, well, how are you back on social media if it's such a terrible thing? Well, it's not. I mean, this provides an opportunity to connect with people. That's how I use it, is to reestablish a professional network that I had didn't have for many years, and to check in on family and friends and see updates. So it absolutely is a way to stay connected, for us all. But we have to be conscious of what that means. It's the information that we put out in the world, and the information that's collected about us, that then becomes public, and to have situational awareness about where that creates vulnerabilities for us all. Look, sometimes, I'd say being a ghost online, having no presence, also has risks. We talk about sometimes you have to plant your flag, right? To say, this is my Facebook account, even if it's not active, even if I'm never going to post there. If you see someone else pretending to be me, that's not me. This is my account. So there are also challenges with being invisible. What I recommend to people with their digital footprint is to understand it, to see what you're putting out there, so that if it comes back to you in a weird way, people walk up to you and start saying, well, hey, I'm super into dogs, and your Facebook is all about your dog. Then you say, well, that's what a funny coincidence, and maybe it's not a coincidence. That's kind of the challenge that we all have. I think so. There's no easy solution. Being invisible is not in itself a solution.
That's fascinating, and I'm almost relieved to hear that as well. Right, that the answer is not coming off it completely, and that's it being a ghost. But if we're looking at social media as the kind of town square, and maybe different parts of the town square are different parts of the online world, are we thinking about that equally? Are we talking across? Would you provide that advice to all parts of the online space, or are there certain places you think actually it's better to be a ghost?
Well, yeah, I think that obviously the main, I use platforms that I'm comfortable with, that I have, a good understanding of the security profile of the settings that I can control, that I can't. I think we venture into areas where we're less aware of what we're allowing to be collected about us. That's also the challenge, is that when you sign up for these, the platforms, you are allowing access. You're saying, okay, well, you're going to have access to my photos. You're going to have access to my location. You're going to have access to my contacts and my network. Just being very sensitive about restricting those as much as you can. We give up our privacy when we get the connectivity, when we get to see other things. So it's a trade-off, and make sure that what you're trading is worth what you're getting is a big part of it. So that's something that everyone should be kind of very aware of. And when you start venturing off into new things, and maybe there's a lack of understanding about what you're trading and what you're getting.
Nice. I think that's a really nice way of thinking about it. So we've covered the individual. Now let's move on to the good guys, the intelligence officers. How are that? I mean, you gave an amazing example of how you specifically used to use it. Is that the same today, or what this new generation of intelligence officers that are coming in, how they're being taught, or how should they be thinking about it?
Well, I think that's yes. I said I'm not that old, but I tell the new. I get a lot of, because I wrote the book, and a lot of people want to get involved in the world of intelligence, want to apply. They reach out and they ask for advice, and my advice is, you need to be aware of the modern tools, technologies that are out there in a way that I kind of didn't have to be. I could allow specialists to go and use these tools, and who had a better understanding of the digital footprint and digital security than I did. But I think that game has changed, and the intelligence officers of tomorrow and today, there's so much information and data available, publicly available. The challenge isn't finding it anymore. The challenge is sifting through what's out there and trying to gather it and then process it in a way that provides actionable, reasonable intelligence. And that's a little different. As I said, knock on a door and get information. Well, now a lot of that information I'd be looking for is already out there in the world. that I
Mm,
don't need to go and ask for it or be public about it. So,
mm,
that's kind of the next generation is from our collection. It's sifting through what's already available and being comfortable doing that because we're as I said, it's will be a large part of your day. If
mm,
not doing the collection, at least being able to ask intelligent questions about how conclusions were made from that information, right? Why is this relevant? What do these links mean? What is this information that I've gathered? You could say, oh, somebody's been in touch, this person of interest has been in touch with this other person, 10 times. You say, well, is that because they're close or is that because they work at the pizza shop that somebody is ordering from? Like, what is that relationship from information that you're gathering? That's kind of the challenge
mhm.
that I see here, and only going to get uh, worse, better, harder.
And if I could ask, it's almost kind of what does the average day look like, right? And you
Mhm.
painted that picture of the challenge of kind of gathering and then actioning that. But in terms of an almost the average day, do those two functions that you described, the gathering and then the analysis and the kind of creating intelligence from it, are they now separate roles or separate specialisms because
Well,
of the way that they've evolved?
it's interesting, and I can speak to my experience. So, in our intelligence service, we have the intelligence officers are essentially asked to be able to do two roles. One we'll call the analyst, which is the overseer of the national security investigation. They kind of own the investigation. They are receiving the information that's coming in from field investigators, from our partners and allies, from open source research specialists, from all sorts of sources, and they are reviewing that to look if there's any information or intelligence gaps, and then they're strategizing how to fill those gaps and tasking those same areas to fill them. So that analyst side is okay. This is the access to information I have. This is what I think it means, and this is the gaps, and this is how I think we should fill the gaps. And then you're tasking the collectors who are said were I've done both roles, the door knockers or the technical surveillance. People who are planting bugs, who are doing remote cyber attacks, gathering that information. And as I said, those folks also need to have an understanding of what they're after, what they're being asked to collect, how best to collect it, um, and then are out in the world doing it. So, yeah, you have to kind of have an appreciation for everyone's job, even if you're doing one role or the other.
And I suppose when you have more information to gather and that they're able to do that now, then the risks of drawing the wrong conclusion as well becomes greater.
Oh, yeah, and obviously intelligence. It's the art and science of it. It's not perfect. If they say if there's a smoking gun, that means the gun's already gone off, right? Like we are trying to provide information, we're trying to process information or intelligence to decision makers to make risk informed decisions, to mitigate risk, and you are just trying to be as clear in the picture that you're painting as you can, right? So you're saying this is what we know, this is what we think it means, and this in some cases this is our advice on what to do about it. But often the intelligence, we're just providing the information and context, and then the decision makers have to make the tough decisions. And
Hmm.
that's so after getting it wrong, yeah, getting it wrong, but being able to provide it in ways that you explain, like, well, here's what we know and here's what we think, and other people might draw different conclusions, but these are the facts we're basing them on. Then you're able to give some pretty good context for that decision making.
And it will probably be hard for you to give kind of specific examples, but you hinted it when you explained that your role was a door knocker.
Yeah.
How, if you were doing that role today, how would that change? What's that kind of evolution, and what would that look like in terms of the action of knocking on a door? How would you approach that differently?
Well, I can give fun or it wasn't fun at the time example, but I'd say a couple of things. First, go back to front of your questions. One, our allocation of resources. So how many door knockers do we need, and how many online research do we need, and where is our time and energy being best spent? I think
Mm,
that with training, what training are we going to provide? Are we going to provide people training in interviews? Or are we going to provide people training in the latest modern tools for information gathering and sorting? So, where are we getting it? Where is value add? And how are we using our resources effectively? I think that certainly is a question that continues to be asked. And for myself, I could say that, yeah, how would it change? Having obviously as much awareness as possible, because we didn't know. We thought we knew. We always thought we knew who we were talking to and what the situation might be, but we didn't. So the kind of light example I give is I was interested in an individual, and I thought that they might be up to something that I was interested in, and I found their ex-wife. So I thought, okay, well, maybe the ex-wife would be willing to talk to me, and that they might provide some insight into this person if there were an issue or if there was not an issue. I knocked on the door of the ex-wife's apartment, and she said, "Hey, come on in." Explained who I was. And I went in to sit down, and there was the ex-husband who was sitting there and joined us in the living room for the conversation. At that moment, I thought, well, I'm going to have to rethink everything, every question I had and what we're going to talk about today, and do that on the fly. So, maybe a little more, maybe there had been a way to establish that relationship was still active or more active than I thought. Those are the kind of things where there might have been better indications of a link. So, that's you're always gonna run into stuff like that. It's the fun and the challenge and the strangeness of it all sometimes. But yeah, you hope to run to less of those situations. Absolutely.
And I think that's a really interesting, also, you mentioned earlier about the allocation of resources.
Mm-hmm.
We have had conversations with people who are OSINT specialists, and they said that kind of the amount of information out there and the tools that they're capable of using at their disposal, actually, he doesn't, they thought, one of them was Matt Edmondson. He trains OSINT analysts. That was a previous episode that we recorded, and he actually he sees it as such a positive, and he sees that the role is evolving because the amount of information you can process now is more. So therefore, you don't need less people; you just need as many people. But then they're now drawing the intelligence from it. That's
Well, absolutely. And even, in the end of my career, I was part of our special operations unit, which was the technical surveillance teams. And there are really two, being very quick, there are close access teams and there are remote access teams. And the close access teams are the ones who kind of break into the office and plant a microphone in the wall and patch it up. I was never here, the title of the book, that was part of it. And then when you leave and no one knew that you were there, and you hope that you capture that information on the microphone. And then the remote access teams are obviously the ones who can leverage technology in place and access technology in place to gather that information. And obviously, the close access is a lot of risk. They're large teams. Your window of opportunity might be 11 p.m. to 4 a.m. when no one's in the office. And they're the plausible deniability of getting caught holding a person's wall in your hands. You might have a great cover story, but that doesn't look great.
Mm-hmm.
So as this, people are surrounding themselves with internet connected devices, and everyone has a phone, and people are online, the opportunities to connect with people and access that information remotely has grown. And when intelligence services need to examine, are we going to invest in a large team breaking into an office, or buying the next remote tool, or having that capability, that also will impact it, right? So that's also resources and kind of the changing nature of the game. I used to, let's say, break into a car, or go look and search a car in someone's driveway while they were sleeping. Now, this was before every single person in the neighborhood had a Ring doorbell camera, right? It is a changing environment, and that's what they're dealing with now.
And I think it's great that you're able to bring examples of situations that you may have been in the past, but actually you're still very much drawing on kind of today's situations, because you are sitting on that expert panel of cybersecurity, working with Ontario, and you're looking at those the broader public sector. So I suppose my question is, in the context of everything we've discussed, what are those conversations looking like? What are the concerns and challenges that the Ontario area, or municipalities or governments, local or national governments, are thinking about when it comes to this space?
Well, this really is the challenge. And, we were doing a close access, entry. If we put in a microphone in somebody's office or in a boardroom, the confidence that we had to have that conversation that we were interested was going to happen in that space. At the time we thought it was going to happen, and that was our access point, is that one person. Well, the challenge now, the modern challenge for organizations, municipalities, is that everyone in the organization is an access point. Every single person is a way to get to the information that they're after, right? And we talk about social media. I'm very conscious of who I'm connected with and who can see who I'm connected with. And that if I am vulnerable, yes, the person is able to, get my information or my credit card or whatever details, but also they can use my profile to target the least sophisticated person that I'm connected to online in some sort of phishing or scam, right? That I have to not just protect myself, protect everybody around me. And so the challenge of Ontario and others and organizations, large and small, is to instill in each person that they are each somebody whose door can be knocked on. That somebody who, regardless of their position, the fact that they're connected to everybody else makes them a key to the company, a key to the organization. So it is on them to do their part to keep everybody around them safe. And that that is the challenge, right? It's that these people make mistakes. And now we have a lot of people who are out there that we have to kind of raise that level of awareness, raise their cybersecurity, limit their threat surface, limit the places where they're vulnerable in a way that we haven't had to before. And that's what everyone's grappling with, right? That's what we're all dealing with.
And then trying to do that in the context of us spending more of our time online and hybrid working and having a bigger social media footprint.
Well, that's it, right? Our individual access points are growing, our digital footprints are expanding, and that then, because we are then connected to everybody else, that means the whole threat surface is growing, right? And everyone, it takes one slip up, and you create a vulnerability or an access point to everybody else. So that's so on the two sides, that's what makes it so attractive for the intelligence communities, the good guys and also the bad guys, right? That they have so many chances. They can cast a wide net. They can send ridiculous emails that, how could anyone fall for this? Well, someone might. And if that one person does, it's just as good as the next for them.
Yeah.
So that is absolutely the challenge.
So we've arrived at the bad guys, right? We're now talking about that. Right. How are they looking at that? How are we consider? I mean, the conversations that we have, for example, is unfortunately we're always kind of saying, I wish we could say that we are one step ahead of them in terms of disinformation and social engineering online, but actually that's probably not the case. How are you thinking about this?
Yeah, I think it's a constant battle. I think it's every day. And as I said, the advantage that the bad guys have now is that they can do it from anywhere in the world as many times as they want. They can, the opportunities they have to get it wrong, and then, they need one chance to get it right, and they're able to pull all the information that we put out into the world to build footballs on us. I kind of joke people. I said the underlying kind of hacking tools are not overly complicated and haven't advanced much. What has is the social engineering that gets you to click the malicious link. Right? Like, we in the old days, I remember a kind of phishing attempt, and it was 4 text messages. Right? It was first text a naked picture, the second text another naked picture, the third text a malicious link, and the fourth text, "Oops, that wasn't for you." And the click rate of that third message on that link was like 100%, right? And so, maybe the links haven't changed much, but the delivery system, what they're able to gather about you to get you to click that link, it makes it very challenging. It looks very real. It looks appropriate. They're getting better at it. So that's the nature of the threat, and why the fact that we're all access points too, why we all need to be kind of aware of it and sensitive to it.
I'd love to unpack that a little bit more of when we talk about social engineering. And for those that kind of aren't fully versed on that, what does social engineering look like? What is that happening there? And then also as well, what are the motivations? And I know there are numerous, but what are the motivations, which is often a question that we get as well. Why are they doing this?
Yeah, ultimately, and I'll take it to kind of good guys, bad guys. When I was trying to have someone help me and work with me and recruit somebody, and I was trying to find a way that we could build rapport, that we would have something some connection or an interest that we could connect over, and that would kind of open that door to a deeper relationship, and not in a malicious way. We do that we do that every day with each other. It's, what do we have in common? What are our shared interests? What are ways that we're going to connect? I said, I joke with my wife now. I said, I can go out to dinner with her, any one of her friends, husbands, if they are interested in any sport, like really any sport. I can do a 20 minutes, be it soccer, football, hockey, baseball. If they have any interest in a sport, I can get through a dinner, no problem, right? Because we'll get through it. We'll find something to talk about, and we're talking about so that's the good guys and the bad guys, and then the social engineering in terms of kind of email attacks and phishing is not what makes an email enticing. There absolutely is a bit of a what makes a link enticing to click, but also what makes it innocuous and look like something you would see every day, right? That okay, this email looks like it comes from my boss because it's written from that email address that it comes from. It's signed the way they normally sign it, and they're asking me to go get gift cards. Okay, that's a weird request, but everything else looks normal. So I'm going to do it. So the social engineering is, what looks either normal to you or what looks like it's, enticing, that you will click a link. You will download a malicious, malicious attachment. You will do something that allows you to be exploited, and your computer exploited. So, as I said, the sophistication of that, has gotten much better. And it's tough. We used to joke about the old emails that, oh, look, that looks so silly. Well, the modern emails look pretty good. And with AI, and I'm sure you talk about this, they're going to look better. They're going to look really good. So it's a little something scary to think about.
Absolutely. But thank you so much for unpacking those ideas, for distilling quite fast evolving, complicated ideas into quite simple things for us to understand, and bringing all of your experience to be able to do that as well. So we thank you for that. We have to end on the same question that we always end on, is if you could give us one example of something good, one example of something bad, and one example of something fake that you're seeing in the online space.
Well, there's so much of all. So let me see if I can use, not only did I came out from 10 years of being invisible and enjoying being invisible. Let me say, it was nice to not be online. I've come out and tried to be a public figure, and write a book and be a bit of a resource and talk about these issues that are still important to me, that I still think are, that I'm passionate about. And so, social media, I've tried to be accessible to people. So the good is that I have people reach out to me on LinkedIn and saying, would you, come on a podcast, or, I'd love to talk to you about your career because I'm interested in a career. The bad, I think, is the spam that I get from that. Obviously, too, it's you have to sift through a lot of stuff, and you feel bad. It eats up some time. Like that is okay. Is this a legitimate request? Is this a marketing email? Is this email? Is that email? And the fake is, the people just look like downright fake sometimes. That's on Facebook as well. That you just go, well, this is not a real thing, or Twitter, this is not a real person. And so who is this? Like, what is happening here? I'm tempted half the time to engage with the person to see what the deal is. Like when it's clearly a fake profile with no mutual connections that looks like it was just created. I see that a lot because I put myself out there, and I half feel responsible because, maybe they did buy the book. Maybe that is, maybe it's not nice to not connect, but just knowing what I know, there's a lot of fake out there. And some of them are not good at being fake, if that makes any sense. So yeah, it's all three, and just we're all muddling through it as best we can, I think.
And that seems like a good moment to end on. I thank you so much for coming on the show today. Really, really appreciate it. As anyone should be, they should also be going on and checking out Andrew's book, I Was Never Here, and check that out all good bookstores. And where can also people connect with you and find you?
Yeah, you find me on that LinkedIn. You go to my website, kirschgroup.ca, and I do consult, and we help. I kind of joke that I help governments, organizations, and private individuals, protect themselves from the vulnerabilities that I used to exploit when I was an intelligence officer. How we look at your vulnerabilities and try to mitigate those. So I have that perspective, and so if your company, we do physical security threat risk assessments, bug sweeps, tactical surveillance countermeasures, and help in any way we can. So please feel free to reach out. I'm a real person. I have a real profile, and shouldn't be too hard to find.
And he has a digital footprint as well, so it shouldn't be too difficult.
That's right.
You can reach and get in touch with him. Thank you so much for your time. Really, really great to speak to you listening. Thanks for listening. Have a great day.